Todd Blanche, el nominado fiscal general adjunto y ex abogado de Donald Trump, desató un caos total en el Senado al salir furioso de su audiencia de confirmación tras ser acorralado por el senador demócrata Adam Schiff por ocultar información sobre las víctimas de Jeffrey Epstein y firmar un pacto para proteger a Donald Trump de la ley. No te puedes perder este video para ver cómo se desmoronó en vivo y entender este grave escándalo de forma muy sencilla. Y rápidamente, no te olvides de suscribirte al canal para apoyarnos y continuar creciendo esta comunidad día tras día. Comencemos. Todd Blanche acaba de concluir su audiencia de confirmación para el puesto de fiscal general. Fue un desastre absoluto. Permítame mostrarles lo que pasó mientras que salía furioso de la audiencia. Pueden verlo cómo se alejaba, mientras que personas tenían preguntas para él. Miren, por favor.
Mr. Attorney General, you going to meet with the Epstein survivors while you're here, sir? Mr. Blanche, any interest in meeting with the Epstein survivors down the hall?
How do you think it went?
Permítame mostrarles lo que pasó dentro de la audiencia. El senador demócrata Adam Schiff estaba interrogando a Todd Blanche. Miren, por favor.
Well, it's in the plain language of your agreement. Did you write this language?
You have to use the facts, though. He hasn't filed taxes yet. So when he files taxes, there's no protection based upon this agreement.
Did you write this language?
Did I type it up myself?
Did you write this language?
No.
But you put your name to it.
I did.
So who wrote this?
I don't know the person that actually typed it. I don't know who it is.
Was it one of the president's lawyers, or was it someone from the Justice Department or IRS?
This document would have been somebody within the Department of Justice.
But you have no idea who that is?
I don't know the name of the person that typed it up.
And did you debate with them the statute of limitations, which clearly would preclude the president's claim, this $10 billion lawsuit?
We had extensive discussions internally about the underlying litigation.
And did you reject the statute of limitations defense?
I'm not a judge. I don't reject
But
things.
you signed an agreement for the U.S.
There was discussion around
you signed an agreement for the U.S. basically indicating that the Justice Department's position that the statute of limitations applies doesn't matter.
I did. That's not what.
Más interrogatorio aquí por parte del senador Adam Schiff interrogando claramente a Todd Blanche. Miren este clip, por favor.
It's that. Let me ask you this. Does this tax agreement, this addendum you signed, also hold him harmless from any audit or tax liability with respect to the billions in crypto money he made in his first year as president?
It's not forward-looking. So to the extent there are taxes filed by the president or his sons or the Trump organization after the date of that agreement, there's no protection.
Well, but before that agreement, so he
hasn't filed taxes yet for money he made last year, right? So
yes.
No.
So if he filed tax returns this year for money he earned last year, that his sons earned, that his World Liberty Financial, all those people earned and defrauded taxpayers on it, he faces no liability under this agreement you signed.
There's no evidence taxpayers were defrauded, and he is not protected.
There's evidence in this agreement that you've absolved him of any liability over.
No, I just said he's not absolved. So the question
So this agreement doesn't apply to a tax return filed last year or filed this year?
To tax returns filed after the date of the agreement? No,
No, before the agreement. A tax return filed in this calendar year before this agreement.
Before the agreement, it applies, not after.
Okay, so for a tax return filed this year for last year, for the billions he made, there's no tax liability, even if he cheats on his taxes or his kids do or his business do. He is absolved of that further potential liability.
No.
Well, it's in the plain language of your agreement. Did you write this language?
You have to use the facts, though. He hasn't filed taxes yet. So when he files taxes, there's no protection based upon this agreement.
Escuchamos al senador demócrata Whitehouse. Escuchemos, por favor, este interrogatorio.
Senator Whitehouse.
Morning, Mr. Blanche.
Good morning.
Why won't you tell us what became of the $50,000 in confidential money that the FBI reported that it gave to Tom Homan?
I'm not aware of what you're speaking about. To the extent that there have been public reporting about an investigation, I know nothing about it.
Well, the public reporting is that the FBI reported giving $50,000 in the nature of a bribe to Tom Homan, and there's been no report of what became of that $50,000. Will you answer that question? Not now, but will you answer that question? Because we've been asking for a long time now. Your department certainly knows what's happening.
I'm not aware that that's true.
Well, take a look at it, and it's publicly reported, and the FBI reported it, and you should answer the question.
Answer a question by a colleague about input that you gave to the president. Did you ever say no to the president on the slush fund, the anti-weaponization fund? Did you advise him against this?
Will not talk about communications I have with the president. I served as his lawyer for a couple of years before he was elected. I'm the Deputy Attorney General and the Acting Attorney General. So I'm not going to talk about communications that I have with him. But Senator, I will say that President Trump trusts me to give him counsel. Counsel does not mean yes, man. And so that's true in my case, like it should be in any Attorney General's case.
Let me just for a minute bear down on the anti-weaponization fund.
Esta fue una parte interesante donde el senador republicano Kennedy hizo una pregunta que se suponía que era sumamente fácil para Todd Blanche. ¿Son amigos ustedes y el presidente Donald Trump? A lo cual Todd Blanche respondió, sí, soy su abogado, es decir, era su abogado. Sí, han convertido al Departamento de Justicia en una empresa del crimen organizado dedicada a cometer delitos y básicamente a servir no solo como el abogado de defensa criminal de Donald Trump, sino como el socio criminal de Donald Trump. Miren, por favor.
Are you and President Trump friends?
I'm his lawyer, was his lawyer, and now I'm the Deputy Attorney General. So I met him as his criminal defense attorney. I'm not sure there's very many people who have ever had a criminal defense attorney who calls that person their friend. I now have a...
Well, let me put it this way. Are you enemies?
No, we're not enemies at all. No.
Have you...
It depends on...
Explain how it is active continued litigation in the District of Florida.
Well, there's been several indications that the parties of, I never entered notice of appearance, but that the parties intend to appeal the judge's Monday 56-page decision.
Well, it'll be interesting. Do you intend to appeal the Department of Justice?
We weren't really even part of that decision. So to the extent there's something that we can appeal, I very vigorously will encourage the department to do so.
Well, here's the tell. In that case, the Department of Justice filed no answer, filed no agreement with respect to the extension of time, filed no response to the case or controversy amici, filed nothing related to the withdrawal of the complaint, filed no settlement, and filed no response to the fraud on the court inquiry. To me, as a one-time litigator, that looks like really weird behavior. And when for the first time in history there's an inquiry into fraud upon the court committed by the Department of Justice, the silence from the department in response to that is deafening, Mr. Blanche. Deafening. And it strikes me that the stratagem here was to file no pleadings, to try to keep the department out of the authority of the court, when what the department knew to be a collusive and false enterprise was blown up in that court. Now, it didn't work because the court found collusion, and it takes two to collude. And they also went on and made the other adverse findings about the department's conduct. And the problem here, Mr. Blanche, is that it's not just that one occasion. Between judges appointed by every president harshly criticizing the department's work in your tenure, grand juries rejecting indictments, judicial findings of outright misconduct, capable lawyers fleeing the stinking ship, this seems to be the most troubled Department of Justice in history. Here are some of the misconduct findings against your U.S. attorneys. And if I haven't put it up yet, here's a word cloud of the commentary by federal judges about the conduct of your DOJ. These are red flag words that when I was a U.S. attorney would have provoked at minimum an internal conversation about what the hell went wrong, and very likely a conversation with OPR and maybe OPR pursuit. Words like
Luego escuchamos más interrogatorios. Esta vez fue el senador republicano Cornyn quien estuvo interrogando a Todd Blanche con respecto al fondo de instrumentalización. Ya saben, el acuerdo en el que Donald Trump entró con el régimen después de demandar al gobierno por $10.000 millones. Esto fue este año. Y una de las líneas de interrogatorio que pensé que fue buena por parte de Corwin es cuando dice, ya sabe, el acuerdo de conciliación dice que solo puede modificarse si es por escrito. No es por eso que usted no quiere poner nada por escrito, porque el acuerdo solo se puede modificar si es por escrito. Por eso no quiere tenerlo por escrito en ningún lado y ante ningún tribunal ni nada por el estilo. Ese es su truco para mantener a Donald Trump súper indultado, para que nunca pueda ser auditado por toda su evasión de impuestos y cualquier fraude fiscal y cualquier delito fiscal que pueda haber cometido. Y así es como mantienen vivo el fondo de instrumentalización al no ponerlo por escrito. Miren, por favor.
But let's talk a little bit about the settlement agreement and the release. First of all, I believe you have said that the weaponization fund is a moot issue. Is that your position?
Yes, it is a moot issue, meaning there is no weaponization fund. The weaponization fund is dead. It's not moving forward.
Well, I would refer you to the settlement agreement. Do you happen to have a copy of that in front of you?
I do not.
Okay,
Senator.
well, you probably know what's in it.
I'm familiar with it, yes.
I'm sure you are. On page 4, this settlement agreement may be modified only upon the written agreement of the parties. Has there been a written agreement of the parties to modify the settlement fund?
No, the settlement fund's just not moving forward. There's no modification. It's just, it never started. No money went from the Treasury to any other account. There's no commissioners. It's not moving forward.
Well, so the settlement agreement remains as it was originally, but I hear what you're saying. Is the settlement agreement enforceable as a contract by the parties?
Well, yes, it's an enforceable document. So I suppose if President Trump's counsel sought to enforce it, they potentially could,
including the weaponization fund.
Well, they could try to enforce the contract. They can't force the Department of Justice to move forward with the weaponization fund. They could potentially say that, I suppose, that we breached by not moving forward. They haven't done that, and I'm not aware that they're planning on doing that. Like I said, Senator, and Senator Durbin talked about this, but I've talked extensively with you and other colleagues about potentially codifying so there's no weaponization fund, which is certainly something that could be done. And I wasn't meaning to insult this body, but just that in response to questions from senators about whether that could be done, we very much are okay with that.
But just to be clear, the President of the United States, who is a plaintiff in this lawsuit, has not agreed in writing to delete the weaponization fund, and there's no guarantee that he or one of the other plaintiffs might raise that issue by way of a lawsuit and a breach of contract lawsuit in the future.
Well, Senator, the plaintiffs have no power over the fund. The fund was administered solely by the by the 5 commissioners and through the Department of Justice. So no, they don't have any power with respect to the fund at all. I suppose they could bring a lawsuit and then we would litigate it. But even if we were litigating it, there's no fund. So the results of such litigation, whatever it would be, wouldn't be a revival of the fund.
I want to ask you about the...
Y luego Corning también habla de que ustedes liberaron de responsabilidad a algo llamado lawfare, guerra jurídica o instrumentalización en su acuerdo de conciliación con Donald Trump. Digamos que significa eso para que todos sepamos de qué es lo que los Estados Unidos están liberando a Donald Trump como parte de este superindulto que le ha otorgado mientras es su abogado. Miren, por favor. Luego escuchamos al senador republicano Kennedy y le preguntó a Todd Blanche, aparte de sí mismo, ¿hubo alguien más a quien el señor Jeffrey Epstein traficara mujeres jóvenes? A lo cual Todd Blanche responde, no tenemos evidencia de otros hombres. Está diciendo que en todos los archivos de Jeffrey Epstein no tienen evidencia de que Jeffrey Epstein traficara mujeres a otros hombres y niñas a otros hombres. Miren el clip, por favor.
Finally, let me just go back to the, in the 50 seconds I have, go back to this release. This purports to release lawfare or weaponization or weaponization. Those aren't legal terms of art, are they?
I think they are just legal terms of art. They're not, there's not
Have
any...
they been defined in any case or any statute?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
So they're not a legal term of art.
Well, I think that the terms have been used by the legal community and by people within government, but no, I'm not sure that they're in Black's Law Dictionary.
But we don't know what that covers.
Well, I think it depends on the circumstances of the facts presented as to whether it covers. As to what it covers, sorry.
Thank you. My time's up.
Yes.
Other than to himself, who, if anyone else, did Mr. Epstein traffic young women to?
There's from what we learned, from what we know. So when we know, I mean, what's in the FBI files and what's in the DOJ files, we did not identify evidence. And by we, I mean career prosecutors, not me, not my leadership, but career prosecutors in New York and career prosecutors in Florida who worked this case hard, did identify other participants, some of whom, as has been discussed, were also victims themselves of Mr. Epstein. But we did not have evidence, as of now, of other men who were that were trafficked, that Epstein helped traffic. That does not mean it didn't happen, and I want to be clear about that. It just means that we have evidence that the FBI gathered and that the Department of Justice gathered, and that's the body of work that we have to work with, which is why I said earlier, if there's anybody out there, victim or otherwise, that has information, I beg them to come forward.
Okay.
Y luego Todd Blanche dice que hizo un trabajo espectacular con los archivos de Jeffrey Epstein, que fue transparente y que a todos les encantó lo que hicieron con los archivos de Epstein. Miren, por favor.
Redact those names. The other thing that we did, Chairman, is we made unredacted versions of the entire database available to everybody in this body. And we did that because of transparency. Remember, for 4 years, there wasn't a peep about Jeffrey Epstein. The Biden administration did nothing to be transparent about the Epstein case. We have been extraordinarily transparent in not only producing the records, but letting unredacted versions be available to anybody in this body. And if, after reviewing unredacted materials, a member had concerns about why something was redacted, they brought them to the department's attention, and we addressed that. So I want to make sure the American people know that this administration, when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein, has been more transparent than any past administration, than Biden was or anybody else. And what we did is we complied with the law. And if we learn a new material, we will most certainly review it and make it available. When it comes to the victims of this...
Todd Blanche luego se niega a estar de acuerdo con el senador demócrata Blumenthal en que los agentes del ICE no deberían de disparar a los autos. Miren por favor el clip.
One last question. Would you agree with me that agents of the United States should not fire into cars unless fire their weapons into cars unless there is an imminent threat?
Give a short answer to that.
There's a well-established standard as to when an agent can discharge their firearm, and I think that's something that should be followed in every case.
And that includes not firing weapons into cars.
Mr. Chair.
Do you want to respond to that?
I mean, there's not really a response. It requires federal agents to follow the rules.
Then let's move on. Before I call...
Well, just 1 week after your meeting, Ms. Maxwell was transferred from a low-security federal institution to a minimum security prison camp. Were you involved with that transfer?
When, as I've talked about before, in the time leading up to me going down to meet with her, we learned that she was receiving threats. That turned out...
I'm going to interrupt you for a matter of time because...
Okay, well, it's not a question I can answer, apparently, in the time you're giving me.
I'm going to tell you this because I deal with issues of criminal justice. When people are under threats in a Bureau of Prison facility, they're put into solitary confinement or protective. They're not moved to a camp.
That's not always true.
It is.
You're just wrong.
What is true is someone that is accused of child sex trafficking under the Bureau of Prison's own policies is not put in a facility like this that seems clearly like a reward. Let me tell you why ethics laws that bind you about the appearance of impropriety are so damning in this case. On the same day that Paramount shareholders voted to approve the merger David Ellison, the head of the acquiring company, hosted a dinner that you attended honoring the President of the United States. While you were at that dinner, the DOJ was still investigating a merger. Did you speak with Mr. Ellison on that evening?
No.
Did you discuss with anyone involved in that organization that evening the department's ongoing investigations?
No.
Well, 6 weeks later, after that dinner, that investigation was closed, that you're stating you have no idea if the attorneys in charge even finished their investigation.
That's not what I said.
What did you say?
You asked me a question about whether the attorneys recommended that the investigation be closed, and I said I wasn't sure. That's different than what you just threw back at me.
Do you believe that that creates an appearance of impropriety that you were at a dinner?
No.
Okay. The Justice Department ethics rules are very clear about avoiding the appearance of impropriety. In a case like this, I don't think that's appearance of impropriety. I think that's improper. That the connected and the powerful are getting a chance to rub shoulders. It would seem appropriate that you avoid those kind of appearances in dinners like that.
Every appearance or dinner or speech that I give are cleared by ethics officials.
So your attendance at that dinner was cleared by ethics officials?
Everything that I do.
I didn't ask you everything you do. Was your appearance at that dinner
You can ask the questions, but you cannot control my answers. I'm under oath, and I can answer the questions. I choose to answer them.
Were you
so what I will
approved
tell
to
you is when I do
yes
things
or
outside,
no?
when
Were
I do
you
things,
approved
when
by
I do
ethics
things outside of the department, whether it's a speech, whether it's a dinner, whether it's an event, they are approved by ethics officials.
You did not answer whether that attendance was approved.
Every time I go out, it's approved. Yes.
Department of Justice is also responsible that powerful corporations play by the same rules. Let's take a proposed merger between Paramount, Warner Brothers, and Discovery. This is no ordinary transaction. It was a proposed $111 billion merger involving two of the last remaining legacy Hollywood studios. As Deputy Attorney General and later Acting Attorney General, you exercise oversight of the Antitrust Division. You approved the decision to close the department's investigation into that merger, yes or no?
I was part of the decision. I
yes,
don't know
you were involved in that.
You
that
don't
is
even
a yes.
let me answer, man.
Did the career attorneys who investigated that deal recommend closing that investigation?
I didn't have a conversation with the career, but as I was saying
I didn't
earlier,
ask you that. I asked you, did the career attorneys who investigated the deal recommend closing the investigation?
I have no idea what they
You were in charge of that department, yet you have no idea. Well,
I didn't say I had no idea. I had no idea about the question you asked about what the career attorney's view was.
You do not know what the career attorney's view was.
I'm not sure what the view was with respect to closing it or not closing it.
Let me tell you why.
Y luego escuchamos al senador demócrata Adam Schiff, quien pensé que probablemente hizo, bueno, el mejor interrogatorio de todos. Este fue sobre conflictos de interés. Miren el clip, por favor.
So you said to CPAC a couple months ago, the other things that are happening, there is not a single man or woman at the Department of Justice who had anything to do with those prosecutions, meaning the prosecution of the president. So you're saying that it's not a conflict of interest for you to be involved in the firing of prosecutors who prosecuted your client, your former client? There's no conflict there? Is that
no, there is. I wasn't involved.
So
would be a
at
conflict.
CPAC, you're taking credit for the firing of these Department of Justice lawyers, but you're not willing to take responsibility before this committee. Is that the case?
No.
Okay.
I'm making, there's a statement I gave
you
at
were
CPAC.
bragging about this at CPAC, the firing of these prosecutors, the firing of the FBI agents, the getting rid of everyone who investigated your client. You were proud of that, speaking for the Department of Justice, but you don't think that's a conflict of interest. You moved to vacate. I don't think you're going to deny involvement in this.
Aquí tenemos más del senador Adam Schiff. Miren, por favor.
So you have also said, you've also refused to release Volume 2 of the Special Counsel's report. That was an investigation into the Mar-a-Lago documents case. How is that not an abundant conflict of interest? Refusing to release to the public an investigative report of an investigation into your client.
I am not a judge. A federal judge.
No. The department's position under you, Mr. Blanche, the department's position under you, Mr. Blanche, was do not release the report.
So that position...
If you went into court asking them to release it, it would be released by now. So how is that not a patent conflict of interest?
What you're saying happens to not be true. I did not do that. What you're talking about happened before I became the Deputy Attorney General.
So you support the release of Volume 2?
No, I don't, but I'm recused and it had nothing to do with that case. Like, you can't accuse me of violating my ethical rules and then lie about what I did.
So you had nothing to do with the decision to prohibit the release of the report? You had nothing to do with the Department's
I wasn't in court.
position? No, I'm not asking whether you were in court. I'm asking you whether anyone sought your opinion or used your guidance in refusing to release Volume 2.
When that litigation was ongoing, I was a private citizen still representing the President of the United States. It was before March. Since March, to the extent there's been anything in front of that judge,
Mr. Blanche, I asked you in your last confirmation hearing whether you would release the report, and your answer was no. Your answer was not, I will recuse myself. Your answer was no, I will not release the report. That was your testimony last before this committee. You subsequently were advised by ethics lawyers not to be involved in these matters, but it appears you were involved in these matters. Let me ask you about another matter.
I wasn't involved. Well, you can't say it appears I was involved, but I said I wasn't.
Let me ask you about another one you have your name on.
The truth has to matter at some point.
Yeah, it does matter. We just don't hear much of it from you.
Ya lo tienen, amigos, esto es lo que está pasando. Quiero saber, por favor, qué opinan ustedes. Si llegaron al final del video, por favor, déjenmelo saber en los comentarios. Pónganme un corazón azul para saber que vieron todo el video. Les recuerdo que si les gusta el contenido de política estadounidense, les va a encantar suscribirse al canal, ya que subimos videos como estos todos los días. Mi nombre es José Alvarado, yo soy economista y estoy comprometido a informarlos diariamente. Nos vemos en el siguiente video. Adiós.